Hey everybody. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's something that we need to talk about, it's something that we've wanted to talk about, and it's something that's an important part of any sort of crafting, but it's an important part in a very large part of leather crafting, and that's failure. So today we're going to address it head on. We're going to talk about how to fail successfully, and how to learn from your failures in leathercraft. So we get a lot of messages and emails and comments and stuff from you guys saying that you're trying to learn, but you keep kind of running into issues and you don't know how to solve the problem. And I thought it would be really important and hopefully useful to talk about this in one video, just address it head on. It's not going to be a long-winded video. We're just going to go over a few things because there isn't, I don't make it really complicated. I don't think there's a lot to say about failure. I think there are a couple of very important points to make, and then you just use it and you move on. So the first thing we're looking at here, so I design on the computer, Kaylina designs by hand, and I just asked her to grab, this is what, maybe 2 months worth of patterns? She designs a lot. And this is all the stuff that didn't work out, right? So, you know, some pieces are just pieces from our other patterns that she's using on other stuff. But the first point of this video that I want to make is that we fail all the time. We try so many things, we try so many designs that just don't work out. What you're seeing is on our social media, on our Instagram, on our YouTube channel, in our videos and our patterns, those are the outliers. Those aren't the average, right? And so by showing you this, it kind of can give you a visual representation of the kind of work that goes into some of the patterns that we make and goes into all the patterns that pretty much everybody makes. There's a lot of failure before you have success. The thing is, I don't consider this failure. A lot of people, and it's very understandable because I did this when I was just starting, they'll start on a pattern, they'll put a bunch of work into it, they'll finally make, they'll finally make a leather version and it doesn't work. And they'll be like, oh, I failed. And I did that too, because when you're starting, it does feel like a failure because this feels like so much work because you're not used to it. And then all of a sudden it doesn't work and you got to go back to the drawing board. But as you progress in this craft, and like I said, this stands for many things in life, but we're a leatherworking channel, we're leatherworkers. We're going to talk about it in terms of leatherwork. As you progress in the craft, a year goes by, 2 years go by, you might go back to this piece and you might have the skill, or you might have seen something in a picture, or you might have gotten a piece in your hand and been like, oh, I can apply that to that design I had. And then all of a sudden you have a piece that goes from a failed pattern, quote unquote, to a beautiful piece that you can add to your lineup, or you can gift your friends and family, or make a pattern to give out. And so for that reason, I don't really define a lot of things as failure. I define them as process. And I think that when you're just getting started, it can feel like failure because you haven't gone through the whole process to see that all of these things are steps in finding success. So failing, when you're new to the process, can be extremely frustrating because leatherwork isn't a cheap craft, you know? It's not super expensive, but you're spending time, you're spending money on materials, you're using materials that are valuable materials to end up with a piece that you can't use. But all it takes is that one time where you make your first version and it's not perfect and you say, okay, instead of tossing this away, I'm going to hold on to it, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to be critical about it. And I'm going to figure out what I do and I don't like. I'm going to figure out why it doesn't work. And then in the next version, I'm going to change it. This version might not work either. You know, maybe this version, you get something else wrong that you didn't even know about in the first version. Because getting all of the other things, fixing all of the other problems in the first version shows you more problems in the second version. That can be frustrating too. But all it takes is that one time where you see everything through to the final version that works to understand that these aren't really failures. Yes, they are in the moment you haven't succeeded in your goal by making a wallet that functions. But over the long term, every failure, I'm going to sound like a self-help guru, this is going to be horrible, but every failure in leatherwork, in leather design, isn't a failure unless you toss it in the trash and don't learn anything from it, right? So instead, this is why we still have these around, instead of taking this wallet and saying, it didn't work, I'm going to throw it away, right? Instead of that, I took this wallet, I looked at it, I said, okay. And I don't particularly remember what was wrong with this specific wallet. But I said, all right, this is what I want. But I'm going to look. I'm going to see what's wrong with it. I have it in my hands. I can feel it. It's not just on paper anymore. Then I'm going to make my second version. And when this one was done, I didn't like something about it. I don't even remember what it was. But I made my third version. And with the third version, I was like, you know what? That's what I needed. That's what I was looking for. And over time, and believe me, this is a time thing. Like this comes with experience, right? But over time, you stop being frustrated when something doesn't work out and throw it away, right? And you put it in a box. This is literally the box that we have right here for our shop. You put it in a box because this box is not a box of failures. This box is filled with lessons that we've learned by making these pieces. It's an encyclopedia of things that do and don't work. And we would only have this box through failure. Because if we didn't fail, if every piece we made was great and then we shipped it out, well, that'd be quite the world to live in. But if we threw it all away, we wouldn't be able to go back to it. We wouldn't be able to look at this and say, okay, I wanted to make one of these, but I have to remember this has to be more than an inch wide. We wouldn't be able to have someone email us or walk into the shop, in the old days, and say, listen, I want this kind of wallet, but I want it really slim. We wouldn't be able to say, look, this is what happens when you make it slim. It's not functional, so we have to make it bigger. All of this knowledge is only failure if we throw it away before we learn anything from it. And by keeping this stuff around, we're continuously learning about things. Kaylina made this design a year ago, and we refer to it probably once or twice a month for other designs we're making. Because it's here, these are lessons that we've learned. We can go in, we can take measurements, we can hold it in our hands, and we can say, okay, this is going to work on that new pattern, and this isn't because look at this one that we made a while ago. We have the information from work we've already done. And so I guess my big thesis on all of this is that once you've gone through the process, you realize that failure is necessary. Failure is a necessary part of the process. Because if you just stop at the first version and you say, all right, it works, I'm good to go, and you're not critical, and you're afraid to find a fault and have to redo it, you're never going to evolve. Your designs are never going to grow. You're never going to, all of those cool things you see online where you're like, wow, how'd they think to design that? It's because they weren't afraid to fail in a piece in order to learn and make their stuff better. And so now that I've got my preachy general thesis out of the way, really what I want to do is just kind of show you guys, as professional leatherworkers, as a full-time leather shop, like just kind of physically what our failures look like, why they happened, and what we do with them. Because I think it's important to normalize that. I think that, through the DM that Kaylina got, it really kind of hammered home that it's important to sort of make sure that we continually humanize ourselves for you guys, to make you guys more comfortable with diving into this craft and taking risk and taking chances. Because that's how all the best, most fun, greatest designs we've ever made have happened. And so I wanted to go through, the first thing I want to talk about is process, right? Because Kaylina, who's behind the camera, you guys know and love her, Kaylina's design process is so much different than mine, but yet our work ends up looking cohesive. So this is my failure box. This is not a failure. This is just a thing we made for a video that the customer hasn't picked up yet. But the rest of it, this is my process, right? If you notice, I'm a little bit of a diva. I use brand new leathers. I see a project all the way through till the end, and I'm a little hard-headed. I'm going to keep making it in hopes that even if I get halfway through and I say, I don't think that's going to work out, maybe it will by the end. Does it ever magically fix itself? No, it doesn't. But that's my process. Kaylina, on the other hand, is much more hands-on, and she's much more resourceful, and I think it comes from, she has a fabric sewing background, where in leatherwork, if you sew a seam wrong, you can't just kind of unsew the seam and resew it, right? But in fabric, you can. And so I want to take a look at Kaylina's design process. I'm not going to call it failures. I want to take a look at her design process to show you guys what another approach looks like. We have a very interesting dynamic. Kaylina can't really visualize things in her mind, right? Where she can't look at a wallet and kind of think about it and be like, oh yeah, if I put the pocket over there, which a lot of people can't. Me, on the other hand, I'm my imagery, they call it like hyperphantasia or something like that, where not only can I see things in my mind, but it acts like a CAD program. So I can design a wallet in my brain. Like, I do it in the shower all the time. I go for a walk and do it all the time. I can design things, but it's not just that I can design a wallet. I can rotate it 360 degrees. I can make changes. I can basically click a back button, and all of those different versions are saved like files, and I can refer back to them in my head. So I don't do a lot of work on paper because I can just see it, whereas Kaylina can't. So it's important to know that there's no wrong way to do any of this. When I was in design school, it used to drive me nuts because I didn't know that I had a more vivid mental imagery than most people, and my professors would always be like, show your work, show your work, show your work. How did you get to that point? And I was like, I just designed it in my head. And they're like, you can't do that. You can do that. If your brain works like that, let it work like that. If it doesn't, though, don't look at the people who can do that and be like, something's wrong with me, I can't do it like that. Because it has nothing to do with that. All of our best-selling patterns, Kaylina designed. So, this is Kaylina's that might be a credit card number.
It is.
All right, I'll blur that one.
Okay.
So I want you guys to see Kaylina's process because it's very physical. She draws everything out. Then she makes her patterns by hand. She doesn't use the computer. So a lot of this stuff, you can see, this is all hand-drawn, right? You know, she's at the workbench with a ruler and a T-square and a pencil, and she's writing things. This is her process. And her failures come at different places than my failures do because our processes are different, right? So where she might find a failure in her paper patterning stage, my failures are usually found in when I go to leather, because I do everything on the computer, I print it out, I am impatient, and I go straight away and I make it. Whereas Kaylina's a bit more calculated. And so when she gets to her physical versions, and this is technically a failure, it didn't work out, you can see that it's a lot different than my failures because this thing is torn apart, cut up, and it's because that's part of Kaylina's process. She made 3 or 4 versions of this, right? But at one time, she had all 4 of them on the bench, and she was working on all of them. Because she was working on the pocket on this version so that she could transfer it to the next version that already had the zipper installed in a way that she learned was the right way to do it from this one that didn't work. All technically failures, but all leading to success. If we look at some other stuff that she's made, it's the same thing, right? So this one I think you actually carried around for a while,
Yeah,
right?
I carried that one.
Yeah, but so she got to the point with this one where it was good enough to carry around, but then in carrying it around, she was like, I want to change some stuff, right? I mean, she's got so much funky stuff. Look at this. This is like a cool kind of... And this seam isn't even sewn together, which is important because if this were me, I would get to this point, know it wasn't going to work, and I would still sew it together because I would my OCD would be freaking out that I left a project unfinished, even though it means absolutely nothing, and I know ultimately it's going to end up on a shelf. Kaylina's better at knowing when to pull the eject button, right? And, you know, it comes stuff like this. How beautiful is that closure? Unbelievable. The rest of the piece didn't work out, but she's got a piece that's coming up that uses this closure, and you guys are going to absolutely love it. This was one of the first times you did this seam, too.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I did that seam on that particular piece, and I moved on from it immediately.
Yeah, you were like, oh, hold on.
I was like, this has way more potential than this piece. Yeah.
Yep. And then Kaylina brought this seam to my attention, and I hadn't done it in 10 years, and in the last 6 months, it's basically all I do. So, you know, we're lucky to have a team. Yeah, you might be at home working alone. I was alone for the first 8 years of my career doing this and working under the Corter name. It is really nice when you can find, I think we're very lucky in that we've found sort of creative equals in each other that work kind of in different ways. So we're able to, where my strengths are her weaknesses, her strengths are my weaknesses, and we're able to bounce stuff back and forth, which is super powerful. If you can find creative groups, they can be painters, tattoo artists, they can be whatever, just in the creative field, bringing the creative experience, professional creative experience, or just hobbyist creative experience from another walk of life, from a different craft into leatherwork is a really great way to get a different perspective on all this stuff. That's how Kaylina's partner is a tile mason, And they do all sorts of other different projects, and that's how she ends up with these crazy silhouettes that I would never be able to think of, because she is spending a lot of time working in different spaces and can apply those sort of spatial relationships to her leather design. Whereas I do other stuff, and that's why her stuff looks so different than mine sometimes as well. The last piece, I don't even know. She has all sorts of stuff. Oh, this one's fun.
Yeah, I
I remember this
I
one.
don't even remember where I was going with that. I don't remember. Something with
It
money standing up. I think I wanted it vertical or something. I don't know.
With horizontal pockets.
Yeah.
This thing is large and in charge.
Yeah.
So for obvious reasons, I think it's understandable why this one didn't work out, but she didn't throw it away, because we are the same in that respect. And we'll be sitting kind of staring at a design we're trying to work out, and it just won't work. And sometimes it doesn't work for like 25, 30 minutes, and you're like, all right, I got to keep moving on this. And she'll just pull this one out. She'll pull something out from under the workbench that she worked on 6 months ago, and she'll stare at it, and she'll flip it around, look at it, and she'll, like I said, it's an encyclopedia of knowledge that you're gaining by failing so many times. She'll be able to look back and say, okay, I want to do this in another wallet, but I did it in this one and I know it didn't work out, right? And that's why I think that ultimately in leathercraft, now if you just want to buy other people's patterns, or download free patterns and make stuff, that's fine. This is more if you want to sort of use this craft to express yourself through designing unique projects, right? If you look at someone else's piece and you say, well, I designed a piece that was kind of like that, but I don't want to make sure that they don't think I'm copying them, but I'm not really sure how to make it really unique. This is the process. This is how you have to explore to find new things, right? If you don't explore, it's going to be pretty hard to just come across. I mean, once in a while somebody trips over a gold nugget in the desert, but usually it's the people that are out in the jungle digging up dirt and throwing away 99.9% of the stuff that they wash through their wash plants that are finding the actual gold. And I just wanted to make this video because through that DM, we did a little bit of sort of looking inside towards Corter and the stuff we share with you. And, we're pretty open about failures and stuff. And, I'll post samples and stuff online, but I really wanted to make a standalone video that hammered home that, yes, failing on a design is normal. Yes, everybody does it, including the people that you may be learning from. And it needs to be normalized because it is a very important, very normal, and very common thing that happens in this craft. All right, and that's going to be it. I know the talking videos don't necessarily perform as good as the project videos, but we'd like to show you guys the most authentic version of what being a professional leather crafter is like. And failure is, God, it's got to be almost half of it, But if you don't talk about it, you don't normalize it, I think it's doing a disservice to the community, because we know that a lot of people watch us to learn, and it's important that you know that this is totally normal. It's important that you know that everyone has a different process, and it's important to know that all of those things are being unique to one person or another is great. That's the way it is. We all have different brains. We all can either see things in our head or can't, or our creative process is different. And so that's where we're going to end it. We'll see you guys next week with a new project video, I believe. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.